Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving straight into the fascinating and honestly sometimes totally misunderstood world of cardiovascular disease. We hear about heart disease literally all the time, right? But the actual science behind how it develops, who gets it, and how we measure the risks, well, it's this incredibly complex web of genetics, lifestyle choices, and statistics. So stick with me because today we are going to completely break down the science of this silent killer. But first, I want you to just think about something for a second. Why is it that human psychology makes so many of us absolutely terrified of a plane crash, but we are completely indifferent to sitting down and eating a high-fat double bacon cheeseburger? Seriously, we strap ourselves into our cars every single day without a second thought, but the minute we hit a little airplane turbulence, we panic. You see, the way we perceive risk is wildly out of sync with actual mathematical reality. It usually just comes down to how familiar we are with an activity or how much we enjoy it, rather than the actual danger it poses to us. And the numbers, they brilliantly illustrate this exact point. Globally, your annual risk of being killed in a road traffic accident is 1 in 5,747. But your risk of crashing in a commercial flight, it's about 1 in 4.5 million. Yet, which one actually gets your heart racing? Our perception is just completely flawed. And when it comes to cardiovascular disease, well, many of us ignore the real mathematical risks of, say, smoking or a bad diet, simply because the immediate, right-now pleasure of that habit outweighs the invisible, distant threat of a heart attack. So, to truly understand our health, we kind of have to strip away those feelings and look at risk the way scientists do. In science, risk is just the mathematical probability that an event will happen. Imagine you're holding a black cloth bag, okay? And it's filled with 6 different colored balls. If you reach in blindly, your risk of pulling out the blue ball is exactly 1 in 6. That's a 17% probability. Well, your risk of developing cardiovascular disease works the exact same way. It's a calculation based entirely on the specific factors you're carrying around in your own personal bag. Section 1, Hunting the Silent Killer. So how do scientists actually figure out what puts those risky balls into our bag in the first place? Well, this is where medical researchers become detectives. And the ultimate tool in this detective work is epidemiology. We're not just looking at one patient in a clinic here. This is studying massive patterns of health and disease across huge populations. To do this accurately, scientists use what are called longitudinal studies. Basically, that means they track the exact same group of individuals over many, many years. A great example of this is the UAE Healthy Futures study in Abu Dhabi. They are collecting data on a massive scale over a long period to figure out exactly why things like diabetes and cardiovascular diseases are increasing in that specific region. But as these epidemiologists are sifting through literal mountains of data, they have to be incredibly careful to avoid one major trap. And that is the crucial difference between correlation and causation. See, when 2 sets of data happen to change together, like, say, there's a rise in obesity rates at the same time as a rise in heart disease, that is a correlation. They're linked. But it absolutely does not inherently prove that one causes the other. Causation means proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that a specific lifestyle factor, like smoking, directly damages the artery linings and physically causes plaque to build up. Getting from a simple correlation to actual causation takes rigorous, repeated scientific proof. Section 2. Factors you cannot change. Once that science is settled, we find that the risk factors for heart disease fall into 2 very distinct groups. The first group of suspects, these are the non-modifiable risks. Basically, the things you're stuck with. No matter how much you exercise or how perfectly you eat, you literally cannot alter these 3 things. First up is age. As we get older, our blood vessels just naturally begin to lose their elasticity and narrow slightly, which pushes up the risk. Second is gender. Statistically speaking, men under the age of 50 are far more likely to suffer from heart disease than women. Why is that? Well, because the female hormone estrogen actually appears to reduce the buildup of plaque. It acts like this natural biological shield for premenopausal women. And third, of course, is genetics. And scientists actually proved this genetic link using twin studies, which are fascinating. There was a massive study in Sweden that found if one identical twin, who, remember, shares the exact same genes, if they died of heart disease between the ages of 36 and 55, the risk of the other twin also dying of heart disease was a staggering 8 times higher than normal. 8 times. It just clearly shows that a major portion of our cardiovascular destiny is written right there into our DNA. Section 3. Lifestyle, diet, and choices. But hey, DNA is not a definitive death sentence. Not at all. And this is where we shift focus to the modifiable risk factors. These are the things we actually have the power to change today. The choices we make have a staggering impact when you look at society as a whole. Take the 2014 Dubai Health Survey, for example. It revealed that heart diseases accounted for an incredible 30% of deaths in the UAE. 30%. And right underneath that grim statistic, we find the modifiable culprits causing it. Nearly 22% of the people surveyed were smokers, almost 12% were obese, and nearly 19% suffered from hypertension, which is high blood pressure. These lifestyle factors are literally stacking the deck against our hearts. Let's dive a bit deeper into the weight aspect. For decades, doctors relied on the body mass index, or BMI, to figure out if someone was at a healthy weight. But honestly, BMI is deeply flawed. It really only compares weight to height. It has absolutely no idea if that weight is pure, healthy muscle on an Olympic athlete or dangerous fat. That's exactly why scientists are moving away from it and increasingly relying on the waist-to-hip ratio. Measuring the waist just above the navel compared to the hips is a far, far better predictor of heart disease. Why? Because it specifically measures abdominal fat, which is the exact kind of fat most closely linked to cardiovascular risk. And of course, what we eat directly impacts what's flowing through our blood. You've definitely heard of cholesterol, right? But it's really a tale of two lipoproteins. On one side, we have LDLs, or low-density lipoproteins. These are essentially the bad guys. They're formed from saturated fats. Think your fatty meats and heavy dairy. And they leave cholesterol lingering in your blood to form dangerous plaques. On the flip side are the HDLs, or high-density lipoproteins, formed from unsaturated fats. These are the good guys. HDLs are basically the cleanup crew. They actually carry cholesterol away from your tissues straight to the liver to be broken down, helping to clear out those plaques. So it's absolutely crucial to maintain a healthy balance between the two. Section 4, Medical Treatments and Trade-offs. So what happens when prevention just isn't enough? When lifestyle changes don't work, or your genetics simply take over? Well, medical science has developed a whole arsenal of drugs to intervene, and each one targets a completely different mechanism. Antihypertensives like beta blockers work by blocking the heart's response to hormones like adrenaline that forces the heart to beat slower and gently lowers blood pressure. Statins take a totally different approach. They go straight to the liver and block the actual production of cholesterol, which improves that vital balance of LDLs and HDLs we just talked about. And then we have anticoagulants like warfarin. Get this. Warfarin is actually used in high doses as rat poison. Crazy, right? But in humans, a carefully monitored microdose interferes with prothrombin in the body, which makes the blood less sticky and prevents those catastrophic clots. But here's the catch, and it's a massive dilemma every doctor has to grapple with. For a drug to be licensed, its benefits absolutely must outweigh the side effects. But those side effects are very, very real. Antihypertensives can cause severe fatigue or even fainting spells. Statins can occasionally trigger dangerous muscle inflammation. And anticoagulants, well, because their whole job is to stop blood from clotting, a really simple internal injury can lead to severe, sometimes even fatal internal bleeding. It is a constant, delicate balancing act for medical professionals. However, when these treatments are used correctly in the right populations, the benefits can be absolutely miraculous. Look at the data on Asian Indians. This is a demographic with a particularly high risk for cardiovascular disease. The results are staggering. For smokers in this group taking statins, their risk of cardiovascular disease plummeted by an incredible 59%, almost 60%. And for those with diabetes, the risk dropped by 43%. This brilliantly illustrates just how much targeted medical intervention can completely rewrite the statistical odds for high-risk individuals. Okay, so we've seen the math, we know how the genetics work, and we understand the drugs. Which leaves us with one final, deeply human question. If we know the exact mathematical risks of a bad diet, physical inactivity, and smoking, why is changing our lifestyle so incredibly difficult? Well, it's because the human brain is hardwired for the present. The immediate pleasure of eating high-fat food or the quick, addictive hit of nicotine feels very real right now. But the threat of a heart attack 20 years down the road, that feels abstract, like it belongs to someone else entirely. Overcoming cardiovascular disease isn't just a medical battle, folks, it's a psychological one. And the very first step to winning it is recognizing exactly what's sitting in your own personal bag of risk. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, stay curious and please stay healthy.